Yeah. Thank you. Meeting opening. Attendance, Mr. Benny, is there any apologies?
No apologies, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Council acknowledges and pays respect to the past, present and future traditional owners, elders of this nation and their contribution of cultural, spiritual and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. I'd also like to welcome and acknowledge the Greater Dandenong youth leaders here tonight. Item number 1.3, offering of prayer. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer this evening will be offered by Sri Bani Vandajakuma from the Braham Community World Spiritual University, a member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Network. Could everyone please be standing?
Om Shanti. Om Shanti is a greeting of peace. I will start with the reflection of Om Shanti and end with the reflection of Om Shanti. First, breathe in peace. Breathe out any tension. Again, breathe in peace. Breathe out any tension. Now, relax the body, your feet, your shoulders, your neck, and your thinking, and also your mind. Now wake a memory of your deepest peace and calm. Remember that feeling. Listen to it. Allow the calm feeling to flow into you and through you. Connect to this feeling of your deepest peace and calm. Absorb it. Fill yourself with these feelings. Gently return to your innermost peaceful and calm state. finally feeling refreshed and empowered from the peaceful feeling of your calm center. Let this feeling of calm and peace flow out into your life and to the atmosphere of this meeting you are to share this evening. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. Item 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. Ordinary meeting of Council on the 10th of May 2021.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Moved by Councillor
Move
Dark,
second.
seconded by Councillor Gerard. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 1.5, disclosures of interest. Mr. Benny, is there any disclosures of
No
interest?
disclosures, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, Officers Report Part 1, documents for tabling. Moved by Councillor Lim, seconded by Councillor Formoso. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.2, statutory planning applications. 2.2.1, planning decisions issued by Planning Minister Delegate April 2021. Moved by Councillor Gerard, seconded by Councillor Tan. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.2.2, planning delegate decisions issued April 2021. Moved by Councillor Lim, seconded by Councillor Gerard. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.2.3, town planning application number 5, Langgold Court, Noble Park. Planning application number PLN 20/0374.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Milkovich. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.2.4, town planning application number 41, Lawn Road, Noble Park. Planning application number PLN 19/0627. Moved by Councillor Lim, seconded by Councillor Foster. Is there any questions, councillors?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Mehmeti.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, I want to know, in this report it says there's a waiver of one visitor car park space. Can the relevant director give a response to that?
Mr. Bent, sorry.
Madam Mayor, thank
Sorry.
you through yourself
I nearly called you Jody, sorry.
to Councillor Mehmeti. Yes, technically there is an application for a requirement to consider a reduction in one car space. The development proposes 8 units on the overall site. It's a single lot, and anything more than 5 then would require a visitor car space. But in terms of the design that was submitted, they're being developed in 2 clusters. The site goes through from one street through to the next, and midway through the development, there is no permeability. You cannot get through from the one side to the other. So effectively what you've got are 2 sites, each accommodating 4 units. From a practical point of view, then it complies. From a practical point of view, there isn't going to be a shortage of visitor car spaces. And in fact, in terms of resident car spaces, there's an actual oversupply by 2 spaces on the overall site. Taking into consideration the design and the way that the site has been developed or proposed for development, we considered it appropriate to recommend that one car space, which is, I say, more of a technicality than the reality, that it be
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Bosman.
for the clarification.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
Indicate
You
opposition, Mayor.
opposed? Yes. It was moved by councillor Lim. If there's an opposition, so you get 5 minutes to speak about the application.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. To me, the reason we try to move that motion because of the application was to be the appeal to the VCAT. It is the officer view that it is likely that VCAT would also issue a planning permit for this proposal. Therefore, my point of view is if we try to oppose it, likely we're going to cost to the council at least $15,000 for this sort of thing. We might as well to move it because according to the advice from the director. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Lim. In second is councillor Foster, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second what Councillor Lim has said. But also, we are a growing municipality. We need to, I guess, looking at the number of proposed units, it looks like it's catering to our community. On paper, it looks like it addresses the guidelines, perhaps apart from the visitors' car park, but it sounds like there is enough parking space to cater for that. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Foster. In opposition, councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I rise to oppose this application on the grounds of what has been discussed, I suppose, in this chamber so far. I have a real issue with overdevelopment in the municipality as a whole. I understand what Councillor Foster is saying with regards to housing stock and having suitable housing within the municipality. However, we do need the right amount of housing stock in the right areas. Having 8 double-storey townhouses on one block, even if there's a permeable divide with the garage blocking it and 4 going either way, is still a very large overdevelopment. If this was one driveway going the whole way through, this would not get through council. The officer's recommendation, I would assume, would be an opposition to it, particularly given the removal of the visitors' car park space. As Councillor Lim touched on with the VCAT application, this council has seen, certainly over the last 4 years on this council, that there are multiple times where this council has opposed a planning application. It's gone before VCAT. And once it's hit VCAT, the VCAT member tends to side with council historically. We've seen several cases, one in Callahan Street, right in Noble Park Secondary College, in which case was, by all means, an officer recommendation was to approve it. It was an overdevelopment of the site, in which I thought myself and former councillor Brown actually contributed by typing out the opposition motion. And when this went to VCAT, the VCAT member actually agreed with the reasons behind our opposition to it. And I'm fairly confident that if this was to go before, we do have grounds to put up quite a firm debate against it. As I said before, the visitor car park space as well is of deep concern. Having 8 townhouses, whether or not there's access or not, does cause congestion and does cause issues within the complex. It is noted that in the report here, of the objectors and the residents who are objecting to it, is that the majority of them are actually at the back. And this is a development which has been put forward by the developer, has been set up so that they're deliberately using whatever planning laws they possibly can get by having 4 townhouses facing Lawn Road and then the other 4 at the back facing the court. The objectors of it are the residents inside the court. And they've got their real concerns, particularly given that 4 more townhouses will be parking there. There's no visitor car parks. The court is a very small and very tight car park and court, and it doesn't have a bowl. So there's nowhere where people can sort of come out wide to park. They're actually being forced to then park wherever they possibly can. And that, to me, is a very big issue when it comes down to planning an amenity for nearby residents, and that is why I'm opposed.
Thank you, councillor Dark. Is there any other councillors for or would like to speak for or against? Sorry, councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I've heard Councillor Dark's points. Some of Councillor Dark's points make sense regarding the bowl, the turning pole, because I know that unit developments in a court with no turning bowl at the end of it can be quite problematic, but I think overall, if council was to try and strike this application out on the grounds of, one visitor car parking space, then we're not going to win at VCAT. Councillor Dark said we tend to win at VCAT, which I believe is not the case. I believe that the statistics, the scorecard would show that 90%, if I remember correctly, of applications that council opposes or refuses are then overturned by VCAT, which ends up to be a monumental waste of the council's money and time with these sorts of applications at VCAT. So, on balance, I don't think we should be playing VCAT roulette with $15,000 of the community's money with this application. That overall, on the balance, it does meet the requirements. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Tan, you wanted to say something?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just got a question to the relevant officer, just regarding to the car park issue. Also, just to note that this site is 1,680 square meters, so it's a big block of land. But just my question regarding to the car park, because the adjoining property to the north contained 11 double-story already, so dwellings. So one single story. The adjoining land to the south contained one single-story dwelling, and the land adjoining to the east boundary contained one story as well. So there's a lot dwelling on the lot, and current court also adjoined to the eastern boundary of the site. So my concern is to do with the car park issue as well. If we've got 8 double stories on the block and also 11, dwellings on the other adjoining area, how can that relevant officer, it is efficient for parking? Thanks.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, through yourself, I think the majority of those questions, Councillor, are actually answered within the report. The parking issue I've addressed in my response to Councillor Mameti. With regard to the number of dwellings to the north, you're quite right, there are 11 double stories to the north. The single-story development is the original property that hasn't been, the original dwelling that hasn't been redeveloped yet. In terms of double-story, again, in terms of neighbourhood character and the interface with surrounding properties, the officer report indicates that the appropriate setbacks are there to meet and to comply with res code. And in respect of comments around going to VCAT, in the areas where we have been less successful at VCAT is where we've refused double story to the rear in order to maintain that single story built form to the rear. In this situation, you don't have that. Your double stories are in fact to the front, and setbacks that you have to your property to the south and to the east, in fact, are the appropriate setbacks at the upper level to protect those properties. So the double stories built form, the setbacks on all boundaries, the relationship with the properties to the north, all of that has been considered, and as you will see within the report, the compliance with the various standards and res code have been complied with. On the basis of that, the officers have recommended it be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Tan, you finished? Councillor Milkovich, you wanted to...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I just wanted to make a comment. Now that I've looked at the plans in more detail, I'm also a little bit concerned about the access from, I believe it's Karen Court, because there is no bowl, and I think it was never actually designed as a turning point or turning circle whatsoever. It was just really a dead end. That was really the back end of the property that was facing Lawn Street, or Lawn Road. So I'm not sure how this is going to work in practice. Some points that Councillor Dark made were quite valid in that regard, and the residents are quite understandably worried and concerned what's going to happen with even a little bit of parking that's available, emergency services, so on and so forth. If the site was purely facing Lawn Road, I probably wouldn't have an issue, but the fact that it's actually split in half probably doesn't help in this instance. It might help with the application, but doesn't help in the instance where the parking might be of a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Any other speakers for or against? You write a reply, Councillor Lim, please.
I believe in the. I believe in the officer view that is highly, that like we can't going to reject, going to approve anyway. That's what my point of view is. And because the block of land, quite a big block of land as well, 1,600 meter square. Therefore, I don't see any issue much about car park to me. Yeah. Therefore, I think we should approve that that application actually.
Thank you,
Otherwise, it's going to cost money from the council.
Thank you. All those in favour of the recommendation on page 131, please raise your hand. Councillor Trong, Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Formoso, Councillor Foster, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Long, Councillor Mamedi, Councillor Tan and Councillor Lim. Those against? Councillor Dark and Councillor Milkovich. It is carried. Thank you. I'm missing page, sorry. Item number 3, question time public. Mr. Benny, please.
Mayor and councillors, there are 9 public questions this evening. 8 questioners have opted to have their questions read. The 9th has opted to read their question themselves. So proceeding through those that have opted to have them read, the first is from Heather Lewis of Keysborough. There has been on numerous occasions complaints about the huge amounts of rubbish alongside the bypass road between Eastlink and Springvale Road. I personally have sent some snap send solve queries, and council has rung to say they have been passed on to VicRoads. 18 months later, the same rubbish is still there and increasing all the time. We need a clean-up to happen urgently. It's beyond disgusting. Mr. Kearsley, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kearsley, please.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the resident for the question. It's an issue that we also share with the concerns of that resident and others that we've received over the past sort of 6 to 12 months. So, council has received several complaints regarding litter along the Dandenong Bypass Road. This roadway and surrounding road reservation is the maintenance responsibility of VicRoads, now known as the Department of Transport. Council officers have registered several requests with VicRoads, the latest one being on April the 29th, requesting a clean-up of the area in response to a complaint raised from another Keysborough resident. A further follow-up call was made to VicRoads on Monday the 24th of May to check on the status of this request. The VicRoads customer service officer advised that the request had been registered with a contractor responsible for the maintenance of this area, and a further request has been made for the VicRoads contract supervisor to contact council to advise of the time frame and for the completion of works. Council officers have also registered council's and a number of residents' dissatisfaction with the maintenance performance. We have also registered our concerns with the regional manager of the Department of Transport with regards to the lack of action on that particular part of the road and also a general lack of maintenance by the Department of Transport. So it's an issue that we're well aware of, and we would hope to be able to pass on some good news in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearsley. Mr. Benny, please.
The second question is from George Edwards of Springvale. I saw on the news that the big letters opposite the police station are the library. I have looked online and see the library has many services, but are books really most important these days? Books are online these days, everyone has internet, but are there any spaces for men to build stuff, especially 3D printing, laser cutters, things expensive for individual but help community and entrepreneurship, like so-called makers spaces? Is there any plans to investigate this as an option for usage of library budget? Mr. Fiddler, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank Mr. Edwards for the question. Look, we're really pleased and proud of that the building across from the police station, as mentioned, is more than a library. It is the Springvale Community Hub. And the hub has a makerspace in it called The Studio, and it's available and can be programmed for a range of activities including 3D printing, arts, craft, technology demonstrations. We'd be really happy if Mr Edwards wants to pop in and have a chat with us. We're happy to give a tour of the amazing facilities there and to also discuss his interest in those types of activities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Mr Bennett, please.
Next question is from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. Has the $20,000 for the Maralinga Community Garden allocated in the 2020-21 budget been carried over to the 2021-22 budget? And if not, why not? Mr Ginch.
Mr Ginch,
Through you,
please.
Madam Mayor, the very short answer is no, it hasn't. That's because we only assess carryover projects in July of each year. So we'll do that review in July, and then we'll bring forward a list of carryovers for the inclusion for council consideration in September.
Thank you, Mr Ginch. Mr Bennett, please.
Next question is also from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. After Saturday's poor attendance at the Forever Fest, can consideration be given to moving it back to Dandenong Market, where attendance grew each year between 2014 to 2019 to many thousands of people attending each year, and also a reversion back to the name Greater Dandenong Sustainability Festival, a name that was easy to understand and market? Mr Bosman, Madam Mayor.
Mr Bosman, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In response to Mr Kerwin, the festival is definitely a departure from the typical physical festival and is an exciting foray into digital festivals, which have no geographic boundaries and can reach literally thousands of people online. Virtual festivals are less expensive to run, reach a far greater audience with equity of access to otherwise disadvantaged communities, and the festival's events can also be replayed over and over as they will be archived for ongoing access. And of great importance here, they are environmentally so much more responsible in trying to draw large crowds of people from across the region to a place-based event. At the end of the festival, a full assessment will be undertaken by officers considering what has and what has not worked well, as we consider the way forward in the years ahead. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Bennett, please.
The next is from Lordana Ember of Keysborough. How is planning for a coffee cart inside the Keysborough South Community Hub foyer progressing? It would be enticing for people to visit the hub on a cold winter's day if there was a coffee cart in the foyer. Mr Kearsley.
Mr Kearsley, please.
Thank you for the question. With regards to the coffee cart, we have two locations for that particular opportunity. One is located within the building itself, and the other is located outside, close to the front door. And that could be perhaps a commercial coffee cart operator. We're not sure yet, but the plan is to allow the building to open with the coffee opportunities within the building, and to then measure the need and success of that, and if necessary, engage with any interested business that may want to operate a more traditional outside coffee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley. Mr Bennett, please.
The next question is also from Lordana Ember of Keysborough. When is the Keysborough South community going to be informed of the results of the consultation on the Keysborough South Community Hub Playground, including the community desire for water play in the natural environment of Tatterson Park? Mr Kearsley.
Mr Kearsley, please.
Thank you again for the question. Council received approximately 83 submissions from the residents and community in Keysborough South with regards to the proposed playground. I'm happy to say that the majority of the comments were able to be included in an amended and updated design. That design has been forwarded to the architects for the total project so that we can include the playground into the detailed design, tender and construction timetable for the whole site, rather than do one and then do the other later. As per previous consultation with regards to the Community Keysborough Hub, it is intended to put the responses on the website. The community will be able to see how council has considered all of the submissions. There are a number there that we haven't been able to include, and that's mainly due to the size of the area that we had. A number of community members called for a full basketball court and a large wet play area and things of that nature. We just couldn't physically include them on the site. because there are alternatives at the nearby Patterson Park as well. So that information we hope to be up on the website within a matter of weeks, and then the community can see how we have responded to that and how we've included almost 85-90% of comments in the amended plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. Mr. Benny, please.
This is another question from Lordana Ember. When is the web page on the Keysborough South Community Hub project going to be updated with current status and timeframes? I'm guessing the construction is not on track to start in mid-2021, as the website says. Mr. Keasley, maybe.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you again to the resident. The resident is correct. It is unlikely to commence in mid-2021, partly the reason being is the playground consultation that I've just previously answered. We had to engage and go through that process later than we had anticipated, mainly due to the COVID impacts of late last year and wanting to get clear of Christmas and New Year. The other issue which we're dealing with, which is a positive issue, is that we're seeking accreditation for 5-star Green Star, and that involves a fairly detailed process through the Green Building Council of Australia, where we are required to submit all of the tender documentation, the plans and any specifications to them for checking. And this is done prior to tender so that once construction is completed, we have an easier path to certification, which is an important component if we are intending to highlight the sustainability credentials of this particular council. So I would be hoping that once the Green Building Council has been engaged in the following 4 to 6 weeks, by the end of June, early July, I should have a more complete understanding of the timeframes with regards to then going to tender and then starting construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. Mr. Benny, please.
There is a fourth question from Lordana Ember, which of course exceeds the number allowable under Council's governance rules, that being 3. Although I will note that Mr. Bosman has acted promptly on this matter and emailed Ms. Ember with the response, and she has acknowledged her satisfaction with that response. Notwithstanding that it's the fourth question, it will be included in, including the answer, will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Final question is from Gai Guest of Keysborough. Gai has opted to ask her question herself, so she should come to the microphone.
Thank you, Gai.
Hang on, just to find my notes. Good evening, councillors. In regard to the Noble Park Activity Centre strategy, I would like you to be mindful that the deed that binds the Noble Park Public Hall and the council is so tight it can't be challenged in the Supreme Court, nor can it be broken. Why does council want to make a rod for its own back by identifying 2 sensitive parcels of Noble Park to rezone them commercial, when it's just been said that council often does VCAT? What was it, Mr. O'Reilly? VCAT, whatever. So the car parking is at premium for council staff, traders, residents, visitors to TLC Manor, doctor surgery, and all rely on Frank Street car park in the for the retail area, as well as the Coles supermarket car park, which has 2 significant trees that are part of our diminished tree canopy cover. This is another commercial targeted site, as it is also serves the overflowing from the neighbouring church. 2 of your councillor colleagues have fought long and hard for adequate parking for their wards, who now and know what the lack of adequate untimed parking impacts on a strip shopping centre. Paddy O'Donoghue is Noble Park's hub and needs adequate untimed parking. The parking set aside is not adequate at the moment when leasing out to the facilities to many intergenerational user groups, plus parents using the children's services. Rezoning to commercial means that council loses its power to have stringent controls on what is built and to what form. There are many examples all over the CGD, but more recently 220 Chapel Park in Keysborough and the hazard zone in Dandenong South. Mons Parade is not suitable for dense commercial builds, given it is already choked by traffic and the station car parking in a dead-end street that now has a new deadly intersection because LXRA would not listen to the community concerns and recommendations during consultation. Once Mons Parade was a quiet cul-de-sac in a landlocked parcel of land that once looked out to a railway corridor of River Red Gums up until the 13th of the 8th, 2016, and is backed by Mile Creek. Now you want to subject it to dense multi-storey complexes. Rezoning Frank Street and Mons Parade into commercial, in particular, will only open a can of worms, especially as you want to build a pocket park opposite the car park in Frank Street. Frank Street, Noble Street, Douglas Street gets choked in peak hour times, as it is also a bus route. Why isn't Council considering public use zone instead for the Frank Street car park and Coles car park? This area is not on a major arterial as Springvale or Dandenong, and nor is it on a major waterway. Will Council cap activity centre height to no more than 4 stories, as was set by 51 to 55 Buckley Street several years ago?
Thank you, Ms. Guest. Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Through yourself to Ms. Guest. The draft structure plan does identify a small number of sites in the Noble Park Activity Centre for possible future change in zoning, including the Frank Street car park, which is proposed to be rezoned from residential growth zone, Schedule 2, to commercial 1 zone. The reason for this is to expand the commercial core of the activity centre and connect the car park to the commercial centre in a planning zoning to have a consistent planning zone. However, it's important to note 4 key elements in relation to this matter. There are no plans to remove or relocate this car park. That is not the intention of the proposed rezoning. Adopting the structure plan does not result in the land being rezoned. The structure plan is only identifying a future option to undertake a rezoning. To implement a rezoning, Council would need to commence a planning scheme amendment, undertake a formal public notification period, consider any responses received, and ultimately have the Minister for Planning approve the public for the planning scheme amendment. The current residential growth zoning the current zoning still allows for the potential for the car park to be redeveloped for an alternative use. The land is owned by the Council, and as such, Council has total control over the use of the land. That, to quote in the question, rezoning to commercial means that Council loses its power to have stringent controls on what is built and to what form is simply not true. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Mr. Benny, please.
No more questions. Oh,
You at the table, yep. Detached responses. I haven't got them. No. Oh, hang on.
There were a number of public questions that were taken on notice at the last meeting. I don't have that table before me, but I did read it earlier, and I do note that all questions have now been answered and will be included in the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Item number 4, Officers' Report Part 2, Policy and Strategy. 4.1.1, Noble Park Major Activity Structure Plan. Consideration of some submissions.
I move, Mayor.
Moved by
Seconded,
Councillor
thanks.
Dark, seconded by Councillor Tan. Is there any questions, councillors? Councillor
have a
Garrard,
question.
please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the appropriate officer. Under section 5, page 20 of the structure plan, under directions, are the stated objectives of encompassing mitigation and adaptation, consideration as well as flood mitigation. Can you elaborate on this? What strategies will deliver on these objectives? Will they include renewable energy standards, 6-star ESD standards, and use of recycled materials where possible?
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Through yourself. Councillor Garrard, yes, under section 5, as you correctly point out, page 20 through to the next section, which goes through to page 68. There is reference there, and in fact the original draft structure plan was amended to bring in reference very direct reference and explanation around climate change and the work that we had already done to a number of our other strategies, and to incorporate that into the structure plan. So the simple answer is yes, we will be looking at all of those elements to ensure that as council both considers its own developments or any private developments, will do so through the lens of a responsible sustainability and climate change lens.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Any other questions, councillors?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Tan.
Thank you. Just for the benefit of people's watching here and live cast online, could the relevant officer please outline the key direction of this Noble Park Structure Plan? Thank you.
Mr. Bosman, is that you? Yep. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself. Councillor, the existing structure plan is over 10 years old. It's 12 years old, and in the intervening period, in the last 12 years, a number of, if you want to call it milestone developments, a number of developments have taken place which have fundamentally changed the nature of the area, and how we respond to those becomes important as we go forward. A structure plan that is that old no longer guides future land use development, either in the public sector or the private sector. We've seen the elevated rail and how that has changed not only things like the intersections with Heatherton Road, but it's also changed how we've been able to use the open space that's beneath that elevated rail and integrate that into the open space network and in fact into the street network. It's created opportunities for the redevelopment of the activity centre in a way that it now becomes important for us to give that guidance around built form, height, open space, road networks, pedestrian networks, etc. So the structure plan is that exercise. The structure plan is that framework that will now inform developers as to what is our vision going forward and how we would like to see that development respond to those key changes in the area over the last 10 years. And hopefully that we'll be able to build on those going forward in a way that makes the activity centre economically viable, economically and environmentally sustainable.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Is there any other? Councillor
Thank you.
Tan.
Just another question regarding to rezoning. So what's the difference between the rezoning of the Noble Park Structure Plan and the rezoning of the residential land itself? Thanks.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself. Councillor, I suppose it follows on from the answer I gave Ms. Guest, where the structure plan identifies 9 sites within the activity centre boundary, and that boundary itself has changed in response to the developments, to the form of what we now consider to be the activity centre. The planning scheme amendment that we're talking about here is an exercise that we've just similarly completed with the Springvale structure plan, where the planning scheme amendment brings the structure plan into the Greater Dandenong planning scheme. It does not rezone the land for those parcels of land that have been identified as a possibility for future rezoning. So there are 2 different planning scheme amendments that we're talking about here. One, the planning scheme amendment to bring this document into the planning scheme itself, so it becomes part of the statutory documentation. And if there are any rezonings of land within that structure plan area, that will follow a separate process at a later stage. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Any other councillor questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Councillor Dark, you wanted to speak on? Oh, Councillor Tan, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you to the Planning Amenity and Planning Directorate, especially Mr. Jody Bosman and Brett Jackson and all his team for working so hard to put this plan. The plan's already drafted since last year, so we've done 8 weeks of community consultation, so since 27th of April till the 19th of June 2020. So this is the plan. It will be great for Noble Parks, especially we got heaps of comments from residents, mainly the one that strongly advocated, which is the signalising of the Heatherton Road and Douglas Street, which is the roundabout. We need to remove that and then swap with the traffic light. So that will be the main one. We're gonna will be our second year or third year to advocate with the minister. Just we need some funding for that. So that will be moving forward to upgrade, revitalise our Noble Park Centre, and also to improve the actual centre with the business area to get more residents, more visitors to our centre. So I just want to say thank you to the officer. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Councillor Dark, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I just wish to second and echo the sentiment of Councillor Tan with regards to this preparation, or I suppose the precursor of preparing the planning scheme amendment C224. For too long, the Noble Park has been, I suppose, in the area that's been the left-out cousin, I suppose, of Dandenong, which has been revitalised quite significantly, Springvale, which has undergone a revitalisation, is undergoing stage 2 as well. And we see the same thing in Noble Park. We see the same thing in the Yarraman, with the row of Yarraman shops and Railway Parade as well. But Noble Park, for a lot of time, has a significant potential. It's got huge potential. It just hasn't had the helping hand. It hasn't had the update. It hasn't had the checks and balances which are needed. And it's something that I think is very, very important to the residents of Noble Park, those who live locally and those who live nearby. It allows them to have access to all of the amenities, public transport, services, health, everything is close and nearby. The proposed amendments and the submissions, what we received, were actually justified concerns. I've raised in this council multiple times the rear car park of the Coles in Noble Park, and it drives me nuts. It is filthy, it's dirty, there's rubbish everywhere, and trying to get the owners to comply has always been a very, very, very tough task. But having these sort of amendments which come into place, which push very hard to have the increase in development, hopefully very soon will lead to the development we see in Dandenong. And hopefully once the levy is fully removed, we'll see more cranes in Dandenong, we'll see more development, and that's what we certainly want to see as councillors. The last thing we want is ageing old infrastructure there, where people want to avoid going to Noble Park because of safety concerns, of the amenity, and that's the last thing anybody wants. There's a few interesting sites within the plan as well, which are things that this council has had a little bit of involvement in, but not a whole lot, particularly the VicTrack block of land. The VicTrack block of land, being owned by the state government, has a significant development potential, and it's hopeful that we can come to some sort of agreement, potentially whatever options may be there, to work with the state government to revitalise Noble Park. I would love it. I would love to see more traders opening till later at night. I'd like to see a lot more of the multicultural groups who reside there in Leonard Avenue. There's a lot of the former Yugoslav shops there that provide deli and meats and those sort of things, and that's what we want. I want people to be able to come to Noble Park. I want people to be able to feel safe when they come there. And if that means rezoning it to push very hard for the demolition of the old buildings, so be it. I do note as well that this is now going to a planning scheme, and I'm sure it won't be the last we hear of it, but hopefully we'll start seeing some work soon.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Foster, please.
Thank you. I just also want to second what Councillor Tan has also said, and Councillor Dark, in terms of revitalising Noble Park. As someone who grew up in the area, went to primary school in the area and high school, it is an aged and outdated area. It is a village, and I note that there were concerns about the height of the buildings that were going to be put into this plan. But I commend the council executive team to pull that back, just to maintain somewhat of a village feel. But there is excitement in the air. Residents are excited about this plan. I know that it is a number of years away, but great things come to those who wait, and I do look forward to seeing what Noble Park will soon look like.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Any other speakers? No, thank you. Item number 4.1.2, plaques, memorials and interpretive signage policy review. Moved by Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Milkovich. Is there any questions, councillors? Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the relevant officer, can we ensure that, given the scope of this policy is around naming places, roads and facilities, that we have an equity lens applied to this to ensure that the names chosen reflect the demographics of our community?
Mr. Bosman, please. No, he's not looking.
No.
He's not looking at me. Nobody. Mr. Fiddler, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Leader. Look, I refer to Section 11 of the policy, which talks about the Gender Equity Act. So I believe under that consideration, when names are considered, that will be part of this policy. It has to be considered under that particular section of this policy.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Garrard?
I didn't actually hear the rest.
Could you speak up a little louder? Sorry.
Sorry, no.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do believe that under Section 11 in the policy, the Gender Equity Act 2020, it requires Council to take positive action around promoting gender equity in their policies, programs and services, so that when new plaques or significant streets are considered, that has to be
Follow-up question.
looked at.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you for that response. I'm just also reflecting the cultural diversity of our, so gender equity is great. The cultural diversity of our community will be reflected in the naming policies.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, this policy is talking about specifically council specific plaques and memorials, not community. So unless the community are requesting something, so I'm assuming that each application that comes through will be assessed on its merits, and then in the future we probably will receive way more culturally diverse applications for plaques and memorials. But that, I believe, would be, as I said, taken into consideration on its merits.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Any other councillor questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.2.2, draft minutes of multicultural and people seeking... Oh, I've missed one, have I? I haven't got it. Thank you. Because I've only got 4... Is that the advice? Sorry, I have. 4.2.1, draft minutes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting 3rd of March 2021 report. Moved by Councillor Lim, seconded by Councillor Garrard. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Now we go to item 4.2.2, draft minutes of the Multicultural and People Seeking Asylum Advisory Committee meeting, 9th of March 2021. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Lim. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. 4.2.3, review and update of the City of Greater Dandenong local law. Moved by Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Garrard. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.2.4, report on matters discussed at councillor briefing sessions and pre-councillor meetings, 26th of April and 3rd of May 2021. Moved by Councillor Tan, seconded by Councillor Formoso. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.2.5, list of registered correspondence to Mayor and councillors. Moved by Councillor Lim, seconded by Councillor Trong. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 5, notices of motion. There are no notices of motion, so we'll move on to the next item. Item number 6, reports from councillors, delegates and councillors' questions. Councillor Trong, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 17th of May, Monday or Sunday, 17th of May, with the mayor, I attend the Disabilities Advisory Committee meeting. Then, last Saturday night, I and Mayor and also Councillor Sonorelli attend at the fundraising of Springvale Rotary Club. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Quite a number of functions and events. I won't mention them all, notably MAV State Council at Melbourne Town Hall last Friday, where we had councils across Victoria gather and pass motions advocating for increased funding to various areas. And I went to Sandown Racecourse with your good self and got a jab, had no after effects. The needle was long, but it was a small prick and didn't hurt much at all. So now I've been through it, I'll have no trepidation with going for the second one, which we all should have, Mayor. The Victorian government budget was announced and a couple of wins for Greater Dandenong, which was good to see. The signalisation of Virginia Street and Springvale Road, which is something that I've been advocating for quite a while. I'd like to thank the Victorian government for funding that up to around about $4 million. It's been a safety issue, and I also thank the director and the officers in the Department of Engineering, the traffic engineers, for advocating for this. I know they did quite a bit of work behind the scenes. It all just doesn't all happen straight away. It takes quite a bit of persistent work to get it done, and it was a great result. The second thing, Mayor, which was funded, which was a bit of a surprise to me, but a nice surprise, was the Victorian government also commended the Springvale Boulevard project with almost a $1 million contribution. I understand that that has just kicked off recently. Mayor, could I ask the Director of Engineering on how the Springvale Boulevard progress is progressing generally and specifically concerning trader engagement?
Thank you. Mr Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. It is very good timing. Works actually commenced last night. So we had the first phase, which was the removal of the lighting in the median. So as of 9:30 last night, that started. So we're happy to say we're underway. It will be quite a journey. It won't be completed until mid-2022. So we have targeted the traders in I think the best way possible by going essentially door to door, taking those that also speak the language with officers and also with staff from the contractor, MACA. They are engaged directly with us, with our staff, with traders. So we intend to keep that going throughout the whole project, and I've got an example here of the materials that we'll be using to put a positive message out to say that we're still open for business. Unfortunately, due to timing, we weren't able to get this translated, but the next bulletin, which will go out in a few weeks, will be in a number of languages. Most of the work, I can say at this point, is taking place at night, so commencing at about 6:30 p.m. through to 5:30 p.m. in terms of not impacting directly on traders, but also importantly not impacting on the movement of vehicles and traffic on what is usually a very busy road. And I'd be happy to provide an update as we proceed over the coming weeks, but it has begun.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Forster. Councillor Formoso, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Been a very busy couple of weeks, actually. Been attending a lot of events the past few weeks, but more importantly, I would like to welcome our young leaders of 2021 in our chambers with us tonight. We had a meet and greet, so it was really good to meet all of you, and thank you so much for staying here. I hope we've kept you awake. Look forward to working with all of you in the very near future. One question that I do have for the appropriate officer, please, is I've brought this to Council's attention on numerous occasions, I believe, in regards to First Oakwood Park Scout Hall in Hayington Crescent, Noble Park North. I actually found some syringes there, quite a few actually, last week, and I'd like to thank the officers for removing that very, very quickly. However, the neighbours have been telling me that there has been a little bit of untoward behaviour happening there, a lot of rubbish, some safety concerns with how hidden the area is, and even some paraphernalia that's also been found there by local residents. So I'd like to know if we could, and they also have really overgrown grass, so we'd need to get that managed as soon as possible, please. If we could please contact, with our appropriate officer, could please contact the Oakwood Park Scout Hall to see how we could manage this a little bit better in the future, please. Thank you.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Yes, we'll certainly do that with regards to the grass and the rubbish and those sorts of things. All I would say is, with regards to inappropriate behaviour, we always advise the best place to go is to Vic Hole.
Yep. Councillor Formoso, please.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. I do believe they have done that in the past, but are kind of getting fed up with not having any results. So if Council could maybe just communicate with the Scout Hall to see what we could do would be really, really good. Another little issue that I have is that the Alevi Dandenong Cultural Centre has their events there on every Sunday. They hire out the Jan Wilson Centre on a weekly basis, and they are a beautiful community, Turkish community group that use the facilities quite often, and what's actually happened is their numbers are declining, particularly post-COVID, and it's very, very difficult to get families involved and interested in coming to spend time at the centre, particularly since all of the sporting facilities have been removed from Jan Wilson Centre. The one in particular that's of concern is the table tennis tables. I mean, these are very fold-up table tennis tables, very easily put away, don't have to disturb anyone. They can be brought out each Sunday for the kids to use to participate in some sport and to keep them active within their community. So if the relevant officer could please find out why have they been removed, and if so, what can we do about bringing them back? Thank you.
Mr. Fiddler, please. Oh, sorry. Which one is it?
Councillor Formoso, I didn't pay much attention. I thought Mr. Fiddler, sorry. If you, I'll take it on notice.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think it's a civic facilities question.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Formoso, please.
Probably one more thing, actually, if you wouldn't mind. There's this amazing documentary that I saw on the 7:30 report in January of 2021. And basically, I've made everyone leave.
They're all...
You mentioned the ABC.
Maybe we hang on a minute, let them go, and
Sure.
then thank you very much for your attendance anyway. Thank you, Councillor Formoso.
No worries. So I really wanted them to hear this, never mind. I basically found this report extremely interesting, and I don't know if anyone's ever noticed before, but the bread tags that we have are very difficult to recycle. They actually don't go through the machines, and we have millions of them in this country. And basically what this company in South Australia is doing is collecting these bread bag tags, and 200 of them can actually support the purchase of a wheelchair in South Africa. It's incredible. St. Elizabeth's Primary School is currently collecting these bread bag tags and also certain plastic lids which can be recycled. So it's a great initiative that I'd really like all of our schools in this municipality to be a part of. And the thing that does disturb me is that we do not have a single collection point here in the city of Greater Dandenong. So if we could organise that and perhaps get the entire community involved, I think it would be absolutely amazing. You know, it's making funds for wheelchairs. I mean, it's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Formoso. Councillor Foster, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm quite sad that they've left because
They didn't wait to listen to your
no,
report.
they couldn't hang on. Nonetheless, I will still make my point. Well, I guess firstly, last week was Volunteer Week, and I'd like to acknowledge all the hard work that our volunteers do in our municipality. I do wish that we could boost our numbers, given my statistics that I spelled out for you last time. We do have a very low rate of volunteerism in our community, and I do hope that we have more volunteers putting their hands up in our local area, particularly the young people, because they have so much to offer. And given that we did meet with the young leaders for 2021 today, one of the things that came up as an issue that does concern young people predominantly in this area is mental health. And I'd note through you, Madam Mayor, that there are a couple of, at least a couple, there are probably more municipalities in the area. Glenara and Bayside are a couple that I have come across that do run youth mental health first aid programs for schools in their area for free, to state schools, public Catholic schools and independent schools. So through you, Madam Mayor, is this something that the City of Greater Dandenong could look at implementing? Thank you.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. I believe those councils that receive those support services are funded through the state government School Focused Youth Service. That's a program that we have in this region, but it's not run by this council. It was in the past. We work very closely with the Education Department on a range of programs in relating to mental health, but particularly the responsibilities of training their staff are the Education Department's budget, really. But we're always happy to work in partnership with the schools, particularly with school leavers, those young people that are exiting early for a range of reasons. But yeah, those programs that you mentioned are funded through the state government, but we don't have that program in Greater Dandenong. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Another thing that came to my attention this week was, and I might need some clarification from the relevant officer, that the Ross Reserve football ground, with the new plans, there is no plan for a scoreboard, I've been informed, from one of the parents of a player.
Is that you, Mr. Beasley?
Look, that would, through you, Madam Mayor, that would refer to the master plan. I'd have to defer perhaps with Mr. Bosman's team, and we could take that on notice and have a look with regards to whether there would be one. I'm surprised if there wouldn't be, but leave that with us and we can have a look and get back to you.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Foster.
Thank you. I guess this is another item that I have brought up before, and I know Councillor Formoso has also brought this item up, or the topic up, in terms of racism. We know that Victoria is experiencing a little bit more racism post-COVID, particularly our Asian community has been subject to increased racism. Victoria is second to New South Wales. Recently also, only last week, Maribyrnong Council has passed a motion for the Racism Not Welcome campaign. And through you, Madam Mayor, to the relevant officer, is this something that our council is willing to look into to promote anti-racism once again? Thank you.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Look, we've done a fair bit of investigation into this program, and it's one that has a lot of merit. And I think we've got a lot of information about all the other ways that this council is trying to tackle, particularly racism, discrimination, and so on. We're more than happy to sit down and go through those findings with interested councillors, and then see if that's the best way, if that's the best way for this council to pursue a racism or anti-racism campaign. It does cost money, and we also know that that program has been specifically targeted to schools, so it's a lot of schools across the country that are doing that program, and whether or not that's a way that this council could support schools delivering that program. So I think the answer is we'd be more than happy to meet with interested councillors to go through the details of that program and also what we're currently doing in that space as well around our policy positions. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Councillor Foster.
Just a follow-up. I mean, I do think it's a great idea to get schools on board, but I do believe that it's not just school students who are victims of racism, whether it be in this municipality or beyond. I know with the Racism Not Welcome campaign, it promotes awareness of the impacts of racism and highlights that we won't stand for it. A number of municipalities in New South Wales have passed the motion and have placed up street signs in their activity centres, which I think is a great way of promoting a safe and harmonious municipality. And I think doing what you suggested with schools is great, but I think we can go a little bit further as well.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Mr Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. The other forum that we've had conversational, and we can have ongoing conversation about this, is with Council's Multicultural Advisory Network to get their advice and view on it as well. Yeah, so obviously anything we do is not specific to one cohort, it's a whole community approach. So again, we're happy to give you their feedback as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Councillor Foster. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I had the pleasure this week of attending the launch of the Victorian Energy Collaboration. This is in fact the most exciting development that I have seen since I've come on to council. More than half of Victorian councils have signed up to a renewable energy partnership that will not only tackle climate change, but it will slash electricity prices, leaving more money to be spent on local services. 46 Victorian councils have pooled their energy contracts to source all of our electricity needs from wind. The partnership is predicted to reduce council energy costs by up to 35%. Not only does it stop toxic pollution by the equivalent of emissions of 90,000 cars per year, but it puts money back into services that keep our community healthy. Every single resident in the city of Greater Dandenong will benefit from this partnership. However, it was not easily established and took 3 long years. And I wish to commend the council, the CEO John Benny, for making the decision to enter the partnership, and Jody and his team, who spent many hours negotiating these contracts. The Victorian Energy Collaboration is the largest emission reduction project by local government in Australia. It once again puts local government as leading the way in weaning the government sector off fossil fuels towards cleaner and cheaper renewable energy. I am so proud of the City of Greater Dandenong for being part of this energy revolution. Madam Mayor, I also attended Forever Fest at the Springvale Hub along with Madam Mayor and Councillors Lim and O'Reilly. I had the pleasure of meeting our ambassador, Diana McGarth, who is interested in living sustainably on any planet, perhaps including Mars. I also met Barney Swan, who is an extraordinary example of fantastic leadership in the next generation on sustainability. Congratulations to the sustainability team for their organisation of both face-to-face and online events. The events run until next Saturday, so please, people, take the opportunity of going to some of these. I also had the pleasure of attending the school climate strike on Friday with thousands of young and old Melburnians. I was so inspired by just how well informed the younger generation are on the impacts of climate change and their willingness to stand up and demand a future on a livable planet. Today, I was able to have a briefing on the updates with the relevant officer on the Keysborough South Community Hub, and I'm delighted to see the progress. That is the progress, pleasing progress, but also that the new improvements to the hub are highly responsive to the input from the local community. Also extremely pleased that we're going for accreditation for the 5-star Green Star. This is the first time I understand the council has gone for this, and I think it's extremely impressive. And once again, I think Dandenong is leading the way in sustainability. Madam Moore, Councillor Lim and I attended the Neighbourhood Watch ADM, which was extremely well attended. We heard from Senior Sergeant Deborah Lay and our community safety committee, Peter and Donna. Very important issues were raised by residents that were taken on by the police and the council. Well done to the organisers, Dawn and Reg Vernon, and the committee members. Lastly, I had the privilege of attending the premiere performance with Madam Mayor and Councillor Formoso of Opera Australia's 25th anniversary tour with Carmen, with Madam Mayor, as I said. It was a wonderful performance, and I congratulate the arts team for securing such a high-profile event for the city of Dandenong, which in fact was a sold-out house, I believe, on the Friday and the Saturday. An extremely impressive event. Questions. My first question, Madam Mayor, is what is the status of the Tatchwan Park Nature Sensory Trail concept plan, and when will it be ready for public consultation?
Mr Bosman, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Garrard, construction of the Tatchwan Park Nature Sensory Trail concept plan was not successful in receiving funding in this year's budget. However, a draft ideas and opportunities concept plan has been developed for the sensory trail and is proposed to undertake 4 weeks of community consultation in the warmer months of the year, so in other words, sort of late 2021, early 2022. So we are progressing, notwithstanding that we didn't get budget for it. We have developed an ideas plan, ideas and opportunities concept plan, which we'll be taking to the community towards the end of this calendar year.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard.
Follow-up question. So just to be clear, we consulted the community. We couldn't afford a concept plan. So we come up with an ideas plan and taking the ideas plan back to the community. Is that what's happening?
That is correct, and hopefully in doing that we'll be able to show the community how we've responded to the input that we've received from them. So it's to keep it alive, it's to keep it moving, and hopefully then in the course of the next financial year we'll see some ability to put that into effect.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor
So it's the concept plan that's not a concept plan, but an ideas plan. Okay. All right. I'm feeling a bit yes, Minister, but okay, we'll go there. My second question is, many councils are promoting on their website and social media a project called Your Ground. Yeah. That is mapping a safer Victoria for women and gender diverse people. The Your Ground online interactive map will be active and open for community submissions in July 2021. Can we start promoting this via our website and social media?
Mr Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Greater Dandenong is one of the 18 councils involved in this pilot project, and it is being currently promoted on our website, Council's Intranet, which is our internal staff website, and Council's social media sites. It's been active for a while, and it goes from April through the end of July. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Councillor Garrard. Councillor Mamedi, please.
Stay back.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the Dufton Football Club on the weekend, and they had the White Ribbon Awareness. It was great to see a football club where young, big men, strong men, and wearing the White Ribbon logo on their Guernsey, and it was great to have the Minister for Women, Ms Gabrielle Williams, speak at that event. And I think that's a great thing, that you bring awareness to these football clubs. I know our council has the march from the market to Harmony Square every year. Have we ever looked at trying to get into our different organisations, sporting organisations within our city to start to promote White Ribbon and making people aware of because the numbers that the Minister was speaking are just going up and up and up. It's actually scary. So, and Greater Dandenong being one of the highest areas of women for violence against women, can we look at maybe tapping into these football clubs, soccer clubs, other clubs, and really raising it and saying it's not good enough and they need to do better and they need to own it, I think? Could we have an answer on that, Madam?
Mr Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I believe we currently do. We definitely promote the White Ribbon Walk to a range of all our community agencies. We have a lot of community groups, not-for-profit agencies attend. We have a range of sporting clubs that actually attend on the day, but we can probably do more. There's a whole range of other programs that we do with sporting clubs, particularly around mental health, drug and alcohol education. I'm sure there are other family violence prevention initiatives in there as well, but I'll take that question on notice and happy to provide more detail on that back to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Councillor Mehmed.
Yeah, thank you, because I think it really made a strong statement for these guys, playing a rough game of football and having it on their Guernsey every game. I think it sends the right messages, and I think if we can learn from that, and I think I was told they're the only football club in the country that have it on their Guernsey, so we congratulate the Dufferin Football Club. Through you, Madam Mayor, I also attended the Al-Madar Society Eid celebrations, which was at the Jan Wilson Centre. I'm learning a lot about the Afghan community and so many different community groups, and I think we are starting to have one of the largest Afghan communities, and they come from different tribes, and I'm learning it all, and it was good to share an evening with them and learn about their culture. I also had the opportunity to open the grand opening of the Hazara Trade Centre on Springvale Road. What a fantastic story. We've got two migrants who were refugees, arrived to this country, became tilers, tilers putting different jobs around Melbourne, and now they've opened their own trade centre on Springvale Road. And Irfan and Isa, who are these two gentlemen, young men who have worked hard and achieving, opening up their own business. I think it was a great success story. There was hundreds of people from around the community that came to the opening, and I congratulate Irfan and Isa. Irfan is one of my local residents that live in the Dandenong ward, so it's unbelievable to hear these kind of stories and inspirational for other people to able, when you think that, we've had COVID and everybody's struggling, but these guys have kept on working hard and now have opened up their own business, which is fantastic. So following on from that, Mayor, it was National Volunteer Week last week. I've actually got to mention a volunteer who I think no one's ever mentioned this guy. His name is Ragib Yusufi. He's been volunteering at the Dandenong Thunder Football Club for about 15 years. He puts up the nets, does the lines, washes the Guernseys, and he does it because he loves volunteering, he loves the club, he loves the community, and I think that with people like that, we actually got to recognise them. And I think I know it's been COVID, and we don't do the big celebrations like we used to, but I think we've got to pick out these champions in our community and making sure that we acknowledge them. I know they don't do it for an acknowledgement, but this guy is the heart and soul of this club, and people like him are very far and few between. So I wanted to acknowledge him on the National Volunteer Week, and through you, Madam Mayor, it would be nice to even probably write him a letter of thanks, because I've seen it year after year, and he's a very humble guy. He just goes about doing what he does, and I think the community probably takes advantage of it, because these kind of people just do it week in, week out, and it'd be nice to acknowledge him. Also, I'm a little bit concerned. I was trying to work out what is Forever Festival, and if I don't know what it was, we didn't have a very good turnout. Why was the name changed from the Greater Dandenong Sustainability Festival, which was a fantastic name, and I think it doesn't matter what you did, you'd understand what the actual event means. So can we just have a little bit of an answer regarding how that happened?
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, through yourself, Councillor, that is the same question that Mr Kerwin asked, and I gave a detailed answer to that. So We will review everything at the end of the festival, including its name and whether that name has got traction. This is definitely a new, as I said in my response at the time, a new foray into different kinds of festival. Place-based festivals are going out of fashion. Digital festivals is the way to go, and you see that across the world now, the reach of that. As part of that, obviously, we're needing to look at things like the name, the brand that it creates, etc. So all of those will be reviewed. All of that will be considered as part of the post-mortem at the end of the festival. The fact that you might not have had as many people there on the day does not mean you're not getting the attendance online that compensates, or in fact maybe even exceeds that. Because generally the evidence shows that digital festivals are attracting a greater variety of people, a greater number of people than the place-based physical festivals do. So you might not have seen as many people there, given that we're promoting it as a digital festival. And one of the things that we will be looking at is that come the end of the week, or we won't be able to do it at the end of the week, we'll review the patronage of the festival from a digital point of view, of an access point of view, once the week's festival is over. The other thing, of course, that one must bear in mind is that when it's a place-based festival, you can go to the festival once and that's it. The experience is over. A digital festival becomes archived and you can have access to it over and over again, and you can it continues. So you end up with those festivals being able to be promoted year after year. You can end up with more than one festival that then becomes part of your library of festivals. All of this will be considered, Councillor, when we do the review of the festival. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Memedi.
A for effort, A for new initiatives, but I still find it hard to believe that it's better than what we used to have. So I'm just going to struggle with that. But we'll agree to disagree, and we'll wait for the results, and then we'll challenge those results. So, but I'm just a little bit concerned that I didn't even know what Forever Festival was. It's true. I understand that in the 2021-22 budget, we're not going to have free parking on Lonsdale Street after 30th of June. What advertising and how long are we going to give grace for people when we do turn on the tap and they need to pay for parking meters in Lonsdale Street? How's that going to work come 1st of July?
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. We'll be bringing back some data and some information with regards to the continuation or non-continuation of that particular no parking fee for Lonsdale Street. I'm not aware that matter's been resolved. I understand it may be targeted in the budget, but if this council makes a decision, as it has done in the past, to continue that, then that's a matter for council to take on board. So we'll be bringing that matter back at a time in the coming months to address that. We have given one extension already, and I think with regards to the impact of COVID and other matters, it's probably worthwhile council considering that. But we can put a number of options in front of council before you make that call.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor
Good to hear that
Memedi.
response. I like that response. I like it's coming back and the decision hasn't been made completely yet. And it's great to see actually the central business districts of Springvale, Noble Park and Dandenong absolutely thriving. You drive to Fitzroy Street, you drive down Chapel Street, you drive down these streets that have got the traditional shops, they're struggling. Go to Noble Park, it's doing well. You go to Springvale, can't find a car space. And you see in Dandenong here, the shops in Lonsdale Street are actually starting to be tenanted, so which is a good outcome. And I'll be waiting for that report and going through the evidence on that as well. I had a few residents, a few lovely old ladies, mentioned to me that they normally wait for the bus on Hammond Road, and we've got a seat there, but there's no shelter, and unfortunately winter's around the corner, and these poor old ladies catch the bus every day, and there used to be a bus shelter there many years ago. I don't know who removed it, and it was never replaced. I know probably it's not council who put up the bus shelters, but can we advocate on installing a bus shelter at the Hammond Road, Kirkham Road intersection?
Mr Bosman, or Mr Keighley, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a very topical question. I think we have an article in maybe even tomorrow's paper with regards to the issue around who should be supplying bus shelters and not. Again, it's a matter that we'll take up with the Department of Transport. We are currently in discussions with them about how it is best for them to replace them. The issue is that those that are currently being removed, although we have put a moratorium on any further removals, are those that were about 20 years old that were installed by this council under a different agreement and different regime back when councils undertook the installation of bus shelters themselves prior to the Department of Transport having a program to do that. So we're in discussions with the Department of Transport to get them to understand that it is a public service that they provide in terms of bus transportation, and it's actually in the Road Management Act that they are responsible for shelters, but we seem to be having a particular issue on that particular point. So we'll continue to raise it, and hopefully we'll be able to provide councillors with a more in-depth briefing in the coming weeks at one of the Engineering 101 sessions that we've instigated as part of the CBS program, and outline a program that we think is best dealt with, and that continues to put the focus on the state government providing it.
Thank you, Mr Keating.
Thank you, Mr Keys. I look forward to that as well. I would drive past Hammond Road and Kirkham Road on a daily basis. 3 weeks ago, or about 6 weeks ago, I complained that the road where Hammond Road and Kirkham Road is, it was very patchy. A couple of weeks later, fantastic. The workers came in, ripped it up, resealed it, fantastic. And then yesterday, I saw them ripping it up again. I'm not sure what has happened there. Can you please look into that? Was it not laid properly and we got them to come back and redo it again? I'm just hoping that we didn't pay twice for it. So if we can just have a look into this, because I was so happy 3 weeks ago, got laid, done properly. I thought it was properly. And then yesterday it was ripped up, and today again they poured it back in again. So just to inquire and making sure that we haven't paid twice for this work.
Thank you, Mr Keighley.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll make an inquiry on that in terms of the approaches that have been made on that particular piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Tan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just need to move out a bit. I mean, I've checked the live class 2 weeks ago. You can't really see anything on top of my head, so make sure I just, it's live class, so camera's right there. Firstly, I just want to report. This is my report for the last 2 weeks. So on the 12th of May, I attended the Community Safety Advisory Committee meeting. In that meeting, we did have a speaker from the Monash Uni. So just talk about, like Rhonda discussed before. So it's about the Your Ground app. So the app is, the app you can download now. It's called the yourground.crowdspot.com.au. So the app is to tell you, you can map your experience where it can help and for safer Victorian, especially for women and the gender diverse people. So if you go download the app, you just need to accept the privacy, and then you can put in your location and just to tell you the experience you had for this place. So for example, I feel safe tonight, so I'm safe here in that Dandenong area. So it's a great app, so you can tell where to go, past experience, especially where you feel unsafe. Then you can let other people know, especially women, not to go to that place. So which is a great initiative that will be launched on the 21st of July. On the 18th of May, I attended the National Volunteer Week, so with the Mayor, Councillor Long, and also Councillor Richard Lim. I just want to say, thank you to our volunteers. We've got 200 at least volunteers in Greater Dandenong. Josephine, the old lady, she's still volunteer. She's 91 this year. So I just want to say thank you to her. She's really old, but she's still, out there helping the community. For my question tonight, just regarding to dump rubbish, I know, we brought it up again and again in this council, especially in Greater Dandenong, especially in my ward as well, Noble Park ward. That would be, I think, apart from Dandenong, will be Noble Park would be second on a top list. So, is there anything that council can do, plan a strategy, or any plan that we can help to reduce dump rubbish on the street? Thank you.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, council does run a number of programs. We do run the at-call service, so if people do need to get rid of rubbish, they have one free service a year, and if they need to do it more than once, then they can book directly with the contractor. That information is on the website. The other programs we run, there was some information out a couple of weeks ago where there is a program where people can use their existing bins at certain times to place material that can be recycled, so outside the normal bin program. So we do have that, and we also do have, I think coming up fairly soon, I don't have the information in front of me now, but we do have the opportunity for people to take their waste to Greaves Reserve. We didn't do it last year because of the COVID issues, but I do believe there's one planned coming in the next couple of months, whereby people, usually in trailers, with their trailers, they take the rubbish that they wish to recycle to Greaves Reserve, and they can leave it there with council officers and contractors. So I think from the council's point of view, we do have many services available, but if people want to take the easy way and just place the rubbish on the nature strip or dump it in other places, unfortunately, it's up to our community to improve and not take that approach and use hopefully one of the services that this council provides, which generally comes with no charge, other than if people want to make more collections through the hard waste, they have to pay for those. But I think we do have quite a range of services in terms of picking up the dumped rubbish. We do have a hotspot collection service that does go around particular streets where we know dumped rubbish does occur, in terms of at least collecting that quickly so it doesn't encourage others. But at the end of the day, the resident has to make a determination, do I dump it or do I don't? And we would like them not to.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. I'm pretty sure it's the 26th of June between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. Councillor
Thank you.
Tan, please.
Don't we introduce like fine or any repayment if they dump rubbish, without booking, stuff like that?
Mr. Keasley.
Yes, we do, and that's a matter that Jodie's team, Mr. Bosman's team, with regards to the local laws, if we are able to track people down through an investigation, we can find them. Yes, it can be done, but it's usually very difficult to do that because people tend to undertake the dumping in the evening, at night, when it's dark. But we do have a program of enforcement as well. But at the end of the day, I still believe it's up to the resident to do the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Tan.
Thank you. My other question, this is regarding to the local law that we just passed this evening. So regarding to hooning, so usually that's related to Victoria Police, so now it's part of council law, as part of the council role as well. So just to the relevant officer, what will be the difference between now regarding to the issue with hooning? Do we go to the police first, or do we go to the council? Thanks.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you for yourself. I had a bit of a struggle. We're talking about hooning, Councillor. Within the local law, there is a provision in there now, as you say, that we're going to go out to test about hooning. Now, when we were developing and when we were consulting various stakeholders on the revision to our local law, part of that consultation included the police. And at their request, we have put into our local law the provision around hooning and attending hooning as a spectator, not just as a driver, but as a spectator as well. But that does not necessarily mean that officers, wherever there's a provision in a local law, that the local law officers of council in fact have the responsibility for enforcing those provisions. In this particular case here, under Hooning legislation, notwithstanding that it's a local law, it's enforced by Vic Police. So at this stage, Vic Police didn't have anything that they could use to act upon. So we've put it into our local law, but they are the authorised office. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Mr.
Madam.
Bosman. Councillor Tan, please.
Thank you. I also have the same question with Jim and Miri regarding to bus shelter on Corrigan Road, especially. It's so cold and rainy sometimes. On that area doesn't even have a seat, so there's no seat, there's no shelter. This is along Corrigan Road, close to Kingsclear Avenue. So we can advocate the Department of Transport, but there's a lot of places that doesn't have the seat and shelter. Especially, I just feel sorry for people just sitting there in the wet, like sometimes raining or in the heat. So what can we do, to improve, get more bus shelters, and especially with the bus timing as well. Sometimes take like half an hour to wait for one bus. So if you miss one, you take like an hour sometimes. So it is really bad in terms of our bus service timing and all the shelter. So maybe we can advocate the Department of Transport, but who would be the responsible for that? Thanks.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, that's a matter for the state government to Department of Transport and also the bus service provider. So it depends on the bus route, but any issues related to late service, I would certainly ring up and make a complaint to the particular bus service. With regards to the seating and the shelters, as I've indicated before, this is a particular ongoing concern that we have with the Department of Transport, and it is a matter that soon Council will be fully informed of the action that it can take. We do have a program currently with a company called Media, but the installation of bus shelters is essentially based on advertising return. So you would have seen bus shelters with advertising in them that essentially pays for the maintenance and installation of non-advertising shelters. And I think in the changing nature of advertising, the internet and other things, we're seeing the company Media take a different approach to where they intend to install bus shelters. They only will be on areas where the advertising will get significant exposure. So they won't be the small bus stops around the street down the back of certain parts of our municipality. But again, I would ask the residents that do have those concerns to contact the local MP.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Tan.
Lastly, I just want to say thank you to Paul Keasley and his team, business and engineering team. Thanks to get all the shovel-ready projects up to advance. Also thanks to state government sport and recreation funding. Now our council received another 1.5 million. This is for the synthetic soccer pitch construction at Ross Reserve. So I just want to say thank you to your team for the hard work, and thanks to the Noah Park Suburban Revitalisation Board, who chaired by Mr. Lee Talamas, a member of Southeastern Metropolitan. So far we've done a lot for Noah Park, which is great. So thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Councillor Lim, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The last fortnight, it was very busy for me. On the 17th of May, I attended Road Management Plan briefing. On the 18th of May, I attended National Volunteer Week at Springvale Town Hall. It was great to be a part of this event, as I have been volunteering since I came to Australia 40 years ago, and it's something that is close to my heart. On the 19th of May, in the afternoon, I attended the citizenship ceremony at Springvale Town Hall. As always, it's great to help welcome another group of new Australians. On the 19th of May, I attended City of Greater Dandenong Neighbourhood Watch Forum in Noble Park with Councillor Garrett. Good interaction between the community, police and council officer, giving everyone an opportunity to voice their concern on safety in City of Greater Dandenong and how to improve it. On the Saturday, the 22nd of May, I attended for ever faced at Springvale Community Hub. It was very impressive to me about the layout, the demonstration about living for now and also for the future. On the 23rd of May, I attended a meeting with Mrs. Nora Simkin from Anor Foundation at Noble Park Community Center to discuss about her organization and also another new organization just newly formed to serve the community of indigenous Malaysians that come from Sarawak and Sabah provinces. They contain about 20 tribes in that province. In that afternoon, I met with some business owners at Noble Park Shopping Center to discuss some issues. And also this afternoon, I also went to Noble Park Activity Center again just to discuss some issue as well, because they want me to be there. Yeah. My first question, Madam Mayor, in mid-November, I proposed the idea of roundabout at the Royal Avenue, Balmoral Avenue intersection, as many residents were complaining of frequent accidents and near miss. Has anything progressed with this request? Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. And through you, Mayor. Council has a limited budget for road safety infrastructure, which is allocated through our local area traffic management prioritisation program. This location is within the program, so it has been identified. However, it is not within the highest priorities. Funding will be priorities to locations where the road safety risk is higher, and priorities, I'm happy to provide a list of those priorities to you, Councillor, in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Keasley. My second question is, I met with Kevin Van Boxtel to discuss the outdoor dining spaces in parking lot along Buckingham Avenue and the possibility of moving them onto half of the footpath. Kevin mentioned to me that the fund provided by the state government for COVID outdoor dining will expire at the end of June. So are we able to have that arrangement quickly? Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Please.
Thank you, Councillor. With regards to that, through the Mayor, council officers within Kevin's team and within the traffic team have gone out to inspect potential locations for footpath fixed glass screens and umbrellas, and have discussed them directly with traders who are seeking those to be installed. And we're expecting to receive costings for a supplier shortly, with the intent of placing an order and undertaking the installation as soon as possible using the available grant funds. So it's still underway. We hope to have an update of that in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Keasley. My final question is, I have been working closely with a group of residents to establish a community garden in Springvale since January. The council stated that they were in the process of creating guidelines for said gardens. Could we get an update on where the council is with those guidelines? Thanks.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Councillor, your question has got good timing. The officers are scheduled to do a briefing to councillors on the 19th of July. So we'll be coming to a CBS on the 19th of July and giving you all the information around where we're at on community garden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and also thank you, Mr. Bosman. That's all for me.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovich, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions tonight. Is there any update to a relevant officer for yourself regarding possible relocation of disabled parking on Brady Road shops from the big parking lot right in front of the shops as requested by quite a few of our residents who use the shopping strip? Thank you.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Council. I'll have to look at that one and take that on notice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had a couple of calls from residents who get annoyed by, and this is the east end of Brady Road towards Police Paddocks, where trucks inadvertently turn into Brady Road thinking that it's some sort of a connection to the freeway. So they have these big B doubles and semi-trailers, which, if you know the area, they turn. It's really a dead end, and even to organise the turn, it takes like half an hour. They've got their beepers in the middle of the night, lights shining, like it just wakes up the whole neighbourhood down in Sylvan Court and Cardinia Close. Is there anything, there is a sign that says dead end, but it's only when you enter Brady Road. Is there a possibility that we can look at maybe somehow organising some sort of signage where it actually warns the drivers of these big trucks not to turn into descent, that it's not a freeway entrance, it's not a through road, it's a complete dead end, if possible.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. We are aware of that one. I think we had some recent other issues raised by residents in that area on that particular matter. I'll double check with the traffic transport engineers in terms of where that is. It could take some time because, again, if they're turning off a state road, a Department of Transport road, any signage requires their approval. So leave that one with me and we'll check where we're at with that.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, bus shelters seem to be on point tonight. I guess there is no further update. I have spoken to our local member of parliament regarding bus shelter at Rosewood Downs Retirement Village, Christian Retirement Village, and I know that quite a few residents use that bus stop to travel to Waverley Gardens for their shopping, and being independent in their 90s is obviously remarkable, but it's presenting a challenge, especially in winter months. Is there anything that can be sped up? Nothing at all? No?
Mr. Keasley, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor. That particular issue has driven us to write a letter to the Minister of Public Transport with regards to the actions taken by the Department of Transport in not delivering what we believe to be state infrastructure, and a copy of that letter has gone to the local member. And we are in discussions with both the local member's office and the Department of Transport in order to try and resolve this matter. As I've said before, it is fairly complex. It does involve a number of existing agreements, one that expires in 2023 between the Department of Transport and Oomedia, and one that expires in 2025 between this council and Oomedia. It's a fairly simple view. The bus shelter should be installed, and it should be installed by the Department of Transport. Whether they have an agreement with Oomedia or not, that's for their matter. But we hope to get a response from the Minister's department, but also the local member through the Minister in the coming weeks, and we'll certainly keep everybody informed.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lastly, I'd just like to inform my residents that I understand there's quite a significant concern regarding people speeding along Brady Road past the shops. I just want to say that I've read the latest report from the Transport Department, and I'm happy to say that although there is people still speeding, 85% of people driving past those shops on the measuring device is actually travelling at 54 kilometres per hour. So that should actually put residents' minds a little bit at ease to say that the vast majority of people actually are abiding to the speed limits. If anything, they're probably below the speed limits. Not to say that there are members of public out there who blatantly disregard all speed limits or, safety sort of things that are there. But at least for now, the issue seems to be not contained, but the vast majority of people are actually responding to, campaigns. So thank you for the Transport Department for that report. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I just wish to echo the sentiment of some of my colleagues as well, particularly around National Volunteer Week. It's always something good to get out and to celebrate. Not only the people who volunteer within council, but also people, as Councillor Mehdi said before, within the community who are the unsung heroes, those who man the canteen, those who make sure that the ground's ready to go so that when if they do get broadcast on TV or photos are taken, everything looks top shape. So I do wish to thank everybody for all the work that they do. Over the last couple of weeks, I attended a couple of key events. The first was the start of the season of the 75th anniversary of Australian-Filipino relations. And the city of Greater Dandenong is actually the second largest region after the western suburbs to do with the Filipino diaspora in Melbourne. It was good to be able to attend. Unfortunately, it was held out in Werribee, and for those who have ever been to Werribee, you're not missing much. But certainly, it was a very, very well-attended event. The Filipino community across all of Melbourne came out to attend. There was a lot of local groups, some Filipino restaurants. There's one who I only became aware of is actually in Springvale South, on Henderson Road in the shopping complex there. And they've actually become quite well known with regards to their setup. The second event that I had, I suppose, of significance is the Keysborough Cricket Club. They held their presentation award slightly late after dealing with COVID, but it was actually a very, very well-attended event. And it's a few years back, myself, Councillor Blades, and I believe Councillor Tan at the time, the Keysborough Cricket Club was in dire straits. There was issues to do with the amount of players they had. They were struggling to field junior teams. There was a whole lot of functional issues with it. And the club actually reached out, and the members reached out and formed a new committee. The secretary of that is Jerome Gowder, who is on the Dandenong Market Board, and he had previously been an active participant in the Keysborough Cricket Club, and the president being Daniel McConville, who's a younger guy around my age who sort of took the helm when nobody else would to get involved. Over the last 3 years, the club's gone from having a $15,000 debt that they were worried about being able to service to being one of the most profitable clubs within the district, within the DDCA, and they actually have now got a full exec. They've got teams that are going out, and they're actually up between 2 flags, which is within 3 years the turnaround has been absolutely phenomenal. So I think it might be worthwhile if we could write to the executive committee of the Keysborough Cricket Club, one, congratulating them on winning the flags, but two as well, just for the turnaround that they've done. A special mention to Sir Daniel McConville, the president of the Keysborough Cricket Club, and his parents are Debbie and Robert McConville, who actually are down there every single weekend during cricket season. The dad, who's a chef by trade, was down there preparing all the stuff for the cafeteria, making sure that things were set to go so the club was able to raise money. And then the mum who ran all the errands from the administrative side. So I think it was fantastic. A special mention as well to Danny Albie Parley on his achievement of being recognised as a life member. The life membership is not very many of them at the Keysborough Cricket Club. It's under 20. And this is a person who's been involved with the Keysborough Cricket Club for many, many, many years, in many different facets, and has done some recent work dealing with the kids, getting more kids involved through the youth teams, and then ensuring that then in the future they've got enough kids to be able to play. My first question I have this evening, I have had a couple of things I believe was mentioned to do with race speeding as well. It's come back, and I know I've raised this in the past in Anley Way in Springvale South. There was a car parked on the bend at Vistula Court, which has been sideswiped last weekend, and some damage has been caused to it. And I believe Councillor Foster also mentioned with me as well a couple of weeks ago about the same matter. I was just wondering whether we could please investigate the updates and whether we are seeing a spike of increased traffic in Anley Way, and what potential we can do to deal with any issues around that.
Mr Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. I was actually in a discussion with my officers on Friday about this particular matter, and the information that we're getting with regards to the hooning issue in our region, which is essentially the City of Greater Dandenong, the City of Casey, and the City of Cardinia within that police region, is that yes, it has increased quite significantly, especially following from perhaps the COVID lockdown. Maybe they didn't get enough time the cars to drive around, but the police are certainly picking up an increase in activity, predominantly of those though that involve what they've classified as more professional hooning, which is groups of a couple of hundred people organised in certain parts of Dandenong South, and I think this is where we have to be cautious about a couple of people speeding along a street is not hooning, that's speeding. Hooning is really more of a professional activity where you get groups of people, coordinated activities, which we know occur in certain parts of Dandenong South in those industrial estates. In talking with the relevant police officer at the Community Safety Night, they are running 2 programs. They give them, interesting names, so I don't actually remember what the names are, but it's Operation something and Operation something else. One is for broader Melbourne, one is specifically for this region. And they are actually being quite successful, and I think there have been some reports in the local newspapers, probably up to about a month or so ago, where they were being successful in actually catching and impounding vehicles, etc., etc. So what I can say is that based on the information we've received, it has increased in the last 6 months, but that the police are doing more with those particular operations to apprehend those that do it, and where council can assist is through the provision of appropriate street signs and those things that we've done in the past, especially along the bypass, where they can also take action in not complying with those particular street and road signs.
Thank you, Mr Keasley. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My next question, I've been informed that on Kabinda Drive at Chandler Road, there's quite a large reserve that's there. The reserve has been I suppose, had an update a few years ago with some playground equipment. And there's some residents who live across the road, and I've been informed that there was a near miss with the fact that the property is not fenced, and a ball was able to get across Chandler Road, and a kid has run out in the path of a car. Thankfully, was able to stop. It's been raised by the resident who lives directly across the road from the reserve that they've seen it happen quite a few times, where people either aren't paying attention and there's no fence line to stop kids, particularly younger kids, from running around. Is it possible to have a look and see what potential, one, in terms of what it would cost, and two, what options are available with regards to fencing it off, or some sort of design to make it look like it is fenced off? Just the last thing we want is a kid getting hit.
Mr Keasley, please.
Yes, certainly, Councillor. If you can provide the details which you've outlined, we can certainly chase that up and have a look at whether or not a fence should be and what the cost could be.
Thank you, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question, I raised this via email to the relevant officer, but they asked me to raise it publicly as well. There was some incidences with, and the Mayor, it's been raised with the truck being parked in Narellan Drive. It's a very large truck that's obstructing a lot of views and causing a lot of issues for people going down Narellan Drive, particularly given as it's become quite a thoroughfare from people leaving Parkmore Shopping Centre, heading through to Kingsclear, and then down to Corrigan Road. I was wondering if we could please get an update, and if we have asked local laws to go out. I believe the owner is aware, because I was informed again via a phone call today that apparently the truck during the week goes and parks in the Parkmore Shopping Centre car park, and then on the weekend miraculously appears back in Narellan Drive again.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, yes, thank you, Councillor. As you said, we've got a merit. In fact, this evening, I expect that my officers will have been out there again this evening. In recent months, we've conducted either 14 or 15 inspections of the site of that particular stretch of road, and in that time, we've issued 3 infringements. So the number of infringements related to the number of inspections actually isn't that high, but nonetheless, it is an area that we are familiar with, and I hope to get a report back in the course of the next day or two on patrols that happened either today or will be happening tomorrow. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. My next question I've also raised via email as well. It had to do with the Rowley Allen Reserve. There's been some instances where there's been dogs that have been let off leash. Residents are throwing a ball across on a dog toy contraption thing, and the dogs are actually ripping up all of the ground. And then on top of that, there's been dogs that have been going to the toilet in the middle of the pitch, and it's been causing a lot of issues for the local clubs. They're wondering whether it might be possible to get a sign installed, one to the entrance at Rowley Allen on the fence line, and then 2 on the fence line as you walk into the middle of the ground, just saying the dog should be kept, I believe, on leash is the terminology they use, but whether we could put some sort of signage up.
So, Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you to yourself, Councillor. We are aware of that, and we are having our animal management team look at that with regard to signage, and not just signage, but maybe a bit of education, animal owner education in the area as well. So hopefully that will be some results.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. My final question is actually put to me by a resident during the week after I had a conversation with them at the local shopping complex. In Snowgum Court in Keysborough, at the top end, I believe it's number 1 according to the Intramaps. There's a southeast or Melbourne Water easement which has got a large tree at the front, and it's quite an open space. It would have been, or potentially could have been, a housing lot at one stage. When I looked at it, apparently it's being used as a drainage easement, but I'm a bit perplexed given that it's actually, there's a lot of soil that's been built up and it's actually higher than the road below it, so it certainly wouldn't hold any water. But there has been questions about whether there could be potentially any landscaping improvements within that reserve or something added, because it's just one big ugly tree right in the middle of it, and residents have said that it's just been, I suppose, an issue for quite some time. If we could potentially, 1, have a look at it, and 2, write to Melbourne Water or Southeast Water to see what they can do.
Thank you. Mr Bosman, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first thing I want to say, there are no ugly trees.
Definitely, 100%. Natives, 100%.
But yes, certainly we'll take, I'll take that on board. We'll have a look to see, the situation in terms of existing and possible future landscaping, and who we might engage with regard to, if that's Melbourne Waterland, etc. So leave it with us. We'll come back to you as soon as we've been able to do any of those
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Dark. All right. On the 11th of May, I attended Road Safe South East meeting via Teams. And on Wednesday, the 12th of May, I attended the Community Safety Advisory Committee meeting. The 14th of May, I attended the premiere performance of Opera Australia's 25th anniversary tour of Carmen at the Drum Theatre. On the 18th of May, I was interviewed by St Vincent de Paul's regarding homelessness. That is a video that will be shown to CEOs Sleep Out. They have usually in June or early July to raise money to accommodate homeless people. Pardon? I don't know whether anyone around this area is, but it's held in Melbourne itself. So, cut it out, all of you. Sorry. And that afternoon I attended the National Volunteers Week afternoon tea for councillors volunteers. Now, we have quite a few volunteers that have served many, many years as volunteers, and those services would not be able to be provided by council without those volunteers. So I thank them very sincerely. On Wednesday, the 19th of May, I attended a photo shoot at Sandown to promote the new COVID-19 vaccination centre. And that night, 133 new citizens were at the citizenship ceremony in Springvale City Hall. The 20th of May, I attended the Greater Dandenong Volunteers Resource Service National Volunteers Week celebration. That night I attended Little India's tour and the meeting of the Celebrate the Success of the Shopping Market. Friday the 21st of May, I attended the soccer match of Dandenong City versus Port Melbourne Sharks. Port Melbourne won 2-0. It was a freezing cold night. 22nd of May, I attended the Forever Fest at Springvale Community Hub. That night I attended the Rotary Club of Springvale City annual polio fundraising dinner. On that night, Councillor Trong joined the Rotary Club of Springvale City, and good on you, mate. That's a volunteer service that needs a lot of people to do work. I know John is, or Mr. Benny is part of a Rotary Club, and they do fantastic work. And tonight we had a meeting with the 2021 Young Leaders Program participants. But also I've got another report. The Melbourne City Football Club is a very welcome addition to our region and city. On behalf of Council, I would like to congratulate Melbourne City winning its first piece of A-League silverware in its 11-year existence by defeating Central Coast at Amy Park on Saturday night. It ensures the club will finish on top of the A-League ladder for the first time, thus winning them the Premier's Plate and qualifying them directly for next year's Asian Championship League. We congratulate Melbourne City Football Club. Lastly, I'd encourage all people that are eligible to have their COVID injection to do so. As was mentioned before, Sandown Racetrack is a site where you can actually go and have one, and you don't have to make a booking. They will take walk-ins. So please, to try to eradicate this COVID-19, we all got to get vaccinated. I have already had my first one 2 weeks ago, so I encourage everyone else to have theirs when they are eligible. Thank you very much. Mr. Benny, can you please answer the questions that were taken on notice by councillors last week, please?
Yes, I can, Madam Mayor. There were 21 councillor questions taken on notice at the last meeting. 20 of those have been addressed and are included in the minutes. There is still one outstanding. It's one from Councillor Garrett. It related to the lighting on the Jering Trail. That is incomplete. but the matter has been referred to the relevant authority, being the LXRP.
Thank you very much, Mr Benny. Item number 7, urgent business. As there's no urgent business, I declare this meeting closed at 9:06 and thank you very much for your attendance.